Okay, let's finish it up here with the respiratory system. This is the second PowerPoint, which will finish up this chapter. The first PowerPoint led you through the anatomy of the upper respiratory system, the upper respiratory tract, and eventually into the lungs. Once we arrive at the tips of the lungs, we're not now the conducting zone, but in the respiratory zone, where the actual gas exchange takes place. And the pertinent anatomy or structures here in the lungs that allow for that gas exchange are the alveoli. Alveoli really are what the lungs are made of. They're very thin, simple squamous tissue that allows for easy gas exchange between the lungs and the blood vessels. So carbon dioxide diffuses out of the blood into the lungs and you expel it out, and oxygen diffuses from the alveoli into the blood vessels to be distributed throughout the body. The low oxygen levels that result in someone with COVID-19 indicate a problem with specifically the alveoli at that level of gas exchange. So if you were to zoom in on an alveoli or a cluster of them, I often think of them as a bunch of grapes on a stem. So the bronchioles are tubes, but at the end of those tubes are these little sacs, these little grapes. And you can think of them as just little tiny balloons that are clustered at the end of the bronchioles. And these are your alveoli. And these, just like small balloons, inflate and deflate as you breathe in and out to allow for gas exchange. So there's some information I've added here, how the gas exchange and the issues that developed during COVID-19 influenced by the structures here. The walls of the alveoli are very, very, very thin. And this is good in that it allows for easy gas exchange. But the thinness also might be part of the problem here, that any disturbance to that layer is going to cause problems. When the idea of a ventilation or ventilator, putting someone on a ventilator when they're suffering from COVID-19, is that simple breathing in and out does not get the air into the blood. It doesn't allow the actual oxygen to enter your body, so to speak. So the idea of the ventilator is to really increase the pressure under which air is pushed into the lungs, and literally in essence, to push the air into the bloodstream, because it's not happening by diffusion because of damage to those alveolar walls. Another important component, which we're not sure if it has some role in COVID-19, is the surfactant, and if that's if that's still produced or works as well in someone who has COVID-19. Surfactant, you can imagine like something like detergent. If your hands are sticky or wet and kind of grippy, and you were just to pour soap on them, right? Like hand soap or any kind of soap or detergent, and then you start to rub your hands together, the soap is what we would say slippery. So surfactant is a slippery chemical, and it allows the alveoli, which are clustered together, to kind of slip over one another as they inflate and deflate. Now remember how thin these walls are. If they were to inflate and kind of rub against one another, they could potentially damage each other, or they could become damaged as they rub against one another. So surfactant is a chemical that acts as almost a lubricant, a slippery lubricant, allowing the alveoli to kind of move effortlessly or efficiently in inflating and deflating without becoming sticky and causing increased friction between the alveoli. This picture gives you a good idea of the alveoli and how closely they're tied to the blood. So we're zoomed in here really on a cluster of alveoli. The blood vessels surround and encapsulate the alveoli almost like a netting. So as that alveolus, each one, receives oxygen and it inflates, that oxygen is quickly transferred to the blood vessel. Again, what happens during COVID-19 is something here where the exchange takes place. Damage to the alveolar wall, whether it's due to inflammation, some type of immune storm, which we think occurs during severe cases of COVID-19. Fluid buildup in that alveolus, which makes that very thin wall much thicker. So it's still not completely understood, But here is where the gas exchange should take place and doesn't in someone with COVID-19, severe COVID-19, which results in them being put on a ventilator to help really get that oxygen into the blood.